Hello again, beautiful people, and welcome back to another conversation with Caleb. And I know we usually don't have guests for this one, but I wanted to bring on someone who knows the topic, for better or for worse, inside and out at the moment. She is a player of mine on the Oswego State women's soccer team. I'm so used to saying men's on this program, but the women's soccer program, she's definitely a leader, about to be a 2-year captain of the team. So she knows her stuff on the pitch, but like I said, for better or for worse, she knows her stuff off the pitch in this topic, which I will tell you in a minute. But Haley, thank you so much for being willing to come on and talk about, again, I'll tell you in a minute, but what we're going to talk about on this episode.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, and you're also a super fan of the podcast, a day one follower. I think you have just about every piece of merchandise possible. And now you'll be
Oh,
getting a
well
guest
done.
hoodie, which is exciting. So you can throw that on your resume of
All right.
merchandise for the Make Mental podcast. But what we're going to be talking about today is very tricky, and very open ended, right? It's going to be whatever works for you, much like what we talk about on this podcast. But what I mean by open ended is it's not exclusive to athletes. We're going to be talking about routines, how to create them, how to stick to them, what to do as an athlete or even as an individual if you're injured and then have to start your routine over, change your routine. We're going to try and get in and out of here, give you some quick tidbits, some advice to let you go on about your week and see if you can pinpoint the days in or the moments in your day, excuse me, where you have routine. So, Haley, are you ready to talk about routine and make it exciting? Because, again, it can be mundane and boring.
I definitely am because I am a routine person, both on the pitch and off the pitch. I am.
Yeah, what do you mean by that? A routine person? Are you like type A? Are you not type A? Are you type B? But you just insert routine because that's what you're used to. What do you mean by you're a routine person?
I am 100% a type A person, a type A teacher, a type A student, all of
Yeah, I also forgot in her bag of tricks, she is an
it.
aspiring teacher. So very
I
soon to be,
am.
not to make her feel like the old person on the team or anything, but finishing up the last couple of semesters here to then quite literally go teach America's youth. So here we go. Sit
Yes,
tight,
sir.
buckle up. Future students, if you're ever going to listen to this, this was your teacher before she was your teacher. Here we go. Haley, I know people on our team and myself know that you recently, well, semi recently now, it's quite a ways out, which is surprising. You got a bad concussion uh, off the pitch in the gym. The weights jump out and get you sometimes, but it's all right. Just a freak accident in the gym, right? Smashed her head and has been out
Yeah,
for
yeah.
what, 6 7 months now with a concussion.
What happened at the end of April, and at the
4 months.
yeah, and at the end of July, I finally was cleared. I passed my test, and I was cleared to finally dive 2 weeks ago.
Well, that's good news for our sake.
Yeah.
But during that time, what did routine look like for you? We'll start there and then we'll kind of unpack it and then we'll go into some common misconceptions and how we can battle those.
Yeah. So at the end of April, we were finishing up spring ball, so we weren't really having practices anymore. So I was just lifting every day after work, and when it happened, it entirely disrupted my routine, and it was hard to figure it out, but I knew I needed to because it was really close to finals as well. So I knew like I had to figure it out quick because I had to get stuff done. So my routine changed from being super active, like lifting and running, to can I go on a 20-minute walk without my head hurting or having super bad brain fog after a run or after a walk, excuse me. But, and even my nighttime routine had to change. I couldn't, I hate to say it, but I am a bedtime scroller. Before I go to bed, I do get my 20 minutes of checking all my socials, but when that happened, I couldn't do it. It was too much. So I had no bedtime scrolling. Granted, maybe that was for the better. And then I had to gradually work my way back up to what I could do activity wise and exercise wise. So figuring out what my threshold was before I started having my symptoms again. And it was really hard because once the beginning of June hit, I really had to start getting ready for preseason, and I couldn't do what I usually would do. So it's been talking with the trainers at Oswego, which are wonderful. Matt and Elise have been so helpful. Shout out to them. They've been great for helping me figure out, where can I go, what can I do, how to go about the recovery process, and still try to figure out a routine. So as we've gotten closer and as my symptoms have gotten better, I've been able to incorporate more of what I've been able to do. Because, like Caleb said, this would be my fifth preseason to kind of get ready for. So I have a lot of stuff in the back pocket for what to do. So I finally, this past week or so, have been able to get back to what I have been doing the past 4 years.
Yeah, and again, we love to hear that you're close to back to where you're supposed to be. Obviously,
Hmm.
it's a difficult process the older you get, just in general, with how your body recovers. And I know we're still quite young, so we're not quite at the moment where our body can't recover, but it's different than when you walk in as a freshman. I always reminisce and I'm like, wow, how did I play 3 to 4 games in a day when I was 12 or 13 and still have
Yeah.
energy at the end? Like, get the little soccer ball trophy or whatever for winning or finishing second. But it's like, how did I do that? And then you get to become a senior in high school and you're like, oh, I'm so tired, whatever. These 13, 14-year-old freshmen are running circles around me, although you might be
Hmm.
stronger. And then you get to college and you're the young one again. And you're like, oh my goodness, now I have the most energy. All these people are hurting, but they're so much more aware of the game, whatever sport you're playing. Their on field awareness is higher, but the freshmen kind of are more athletic. So it's a healthy balance that happens at every college. But I want to talk about your routine. Number one, scrolling before bedtime is something I'm going to argue that 90.5% of our listeners do. Right? It's a
Yeah.
habit and it could be beneficial depending on what you're scrolling through. Now, if you're scrolling through TikTok watching dances, and I don't even know anymore, it's gonna make me sound old, but whips and nays, whatever the heck is going on in these dances now,
Yeah.
that might not be beneficial. But if you're scrolling through self-help, if you're scrolling through, for you, soccer videos, how to, if you're scrolling through, sometimes mindless things are okay, but over and
Hmm.
over and over again, you're just chasing that quick dopamine, which we will talk about in another conversation. It's okay to have that sometimes. Just like
Yes.
it's okay to eat a chocolate cake sometimes, just like it's okay to drink soda
Exactly.
sometimes, as long as it doesn't become detrimental to your overall routine. Some
Hmm.
people build in those I don't know what to call them here. I'm not going to call them setbacks. Build in those rewards into their routine, right? They say, okay, if I finish 45 minutes of my homework, if I get through the entire soccer practice or whatever sport you are, fully focused, I'm going to reward myself by going to the dining hall and eating 2 slices of pizza afterwards. It's that simple. That can become part of your routine as long as it's not,
Hmm.
I'm going to eat those slices of pizza regardless. Again, this is where it becomes individual. You can, depending on your circumstance, you really have to figure out what's good for you. So nighttime scrolling is part of your routine. For better or for worse, it's 20 minutes of the
It
day
is.
where you get to do whatever you want. So don't look at it as a bad thing. Look at it as a reward for making it through your day if you want to continue to do it, or a challenge, right? Unfortunately, the injury led you to realize that habit. Now, can you continue the challenge and say, wow, I've been getting up earlier mornings and working out. I've felt more refreshed. I don't know if it sped up the process of your recovery. I'm not a doctor. I don't know if no screens would help. I'm just assuming based on my own concussions that it would. You could take it
Right.
as a challenge and say, hey, now that I've done it for 4 months, can I continue it for longer? Can I shorten it to 10 minutes of
Hmm.
doom scrolling? What are your thoughts on that? Is that something you're going to take on as a challenge? Have you already adopted that? Or are you going to continue to use it as your 20 minutes to do whatever the heck you want?
This summer has been super busy for me. So I honestly, if I get the time to scroll at night, it has still been maybe 10 minutes before I'm like, I'm exhausted. I have to go to bed. Because I'm like Caleb said, I've been working a lot of camps, so I have to get my workouts in before camp. So I've been getting up at 5 a.m. just about maybe 3 out of the 4 weeks in July, and so far these first 2 weeks of August I have too. So it's already been limited.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. So I guess it's a habit that you've a new habit that you've adopted, just given life circumstances, which can happen, and it's
Yeah.
happened for me. Especially, I've been getting half day Fridays in the summer for my full time job, the company that I work for, and it's become a nice routine that I'm not looking forward to ending. But I know that once just that small half day, just those 4 hours
Mhm.
of one work day, I look forward to sometimes to continue to push me through to the weekend, because we all do it. Sometimes I get lazy on a Thursday. I'm like, oh, I can do it Friday. Well, now I only have half the day to do it Friday, as
Yeah.
opposed to the full day. So now I'm like rushing and it throws off my entire Thursday. So when that half a day of routine is no longer there for me, maybe it's because my athletic background, I'm used to every single second of my day being filled. I need that half day filled. So now I schedule it out with other things. For you, how important is, or maybe not, filling every single second of the day? And if you don't, does that put a crimp in your style?
I have to agree, as an athlete, all I've ever known is on the go, busy, busy, busy. Even in high school, when I played like basketball in the winter, well, I would have practice 5 to 7, and then I'd go to club practice for soccer 8 to 9. So, and then I had to do homework after. So it was
Hmm.
constantly something to do. And even right now, I took on a grad assistant job. So I'll be working as a grad assistant and playing soccer and finishing up my classes and driving back and forth from Oswego to Syracuse. I've never known a not busy schedule, and it's definitely hard for me when I have those days because I feel like this is a really bad, not necessarily really bad, but it'll be a tough habit to break once I am retired. But when I have those days, I feel so lazy and so
Hmm.
unmotivated and unproductive, and like I wasted a day because I didn't do anything. But like sometimes those are the days I really need the most. And it's hard. It's a process for me right now to learn to love those days of you don't have anything planned, you can relax.
Yeah, and again, this is definitely geared more towards athletes in the sense where your day is completely filled, and you could completely fill your day with schoolwork. You could fill it with arts. You could fill it with music, whatever. If you're someone who is used to the hustle and almost addicted to the grind, giving yourself those 2 hours of downtime often feels like a day, 2 days of unproductivity. How can we retrain our brain to understand that, hey, you might perform better with those 2 hours of downtime, depending on when it's scheduled into your day? I want to
Hmm.
ask you, as someone who is kind of addicted to filling every single second of the day with something, how would you advise people to go about that? Because there is benefits to keeping the switch on, continuing your entire day until you go to bed. How would you advise doing it healthy so that you can wake up the next morning and do the same thing rather than sluggishly go about your day?
I think when those breaks do come up, whether it be you have an hour lunch break during your day or a snack break or anything that's even like an hour, 45 minutes, if scrolling, is what does it for you, scroll. If, just closing your eyes for a minute, just taking advantage of those small moments has been huge for me. So this past week, last week, I worked a camp from 8:30 to 12:30, and then I worked another camp 5:30 to 7:30. So between those, 3, 4 hours I had to myself, I I watched a lot of the Olympics. So, if you have a show or a movie you're currently watching, throw that on. Something where I didn't have to really have my brain turned on. So just even 45 minutes of just being able to turn my brain off was great, and I was able to do it, day in and day out because of that.
Yeah, so you almost trained your brain to look forward to those breaks. Maybe
Mhm.
not necessarily scheduled them out from 2 to 5 or 5 to 7, right? It was, oh, hey, it's lunch. I get to relax. I get to unwind. Not necessarily turn my brain off, but I'll say use less of a lower functioning portion of your brain. For all my
Mhm.
psychology people, you guys can go into that later. I'm not going to bore you in this episode with it, but I want to kind of jump into the later half here. Obviously, we know a little bit more about you, the concussion. How do you come
Mhm.
back from an injury in athletics? How do you not let it kind of screw up your routine? Maybe you create a new one. Um, Limiting screen time for concussion specifically, but if it's a body injury, and less of a mental one, how can you readjust your exercises? How can you study your sport in a different way? How can you still be a part of the team? Those are huge things. I know you mentioned the two athletic trainers. You had a little sense of community in your schedule, in your routine. That is huge, in my
Mhm.
opinion. Um, I want to kind of walk through maybe 5 to 10 tips that we hear all the time. I think I was doing some research before this, and there's 30 trillion some odd self help pieces of work available to you, whether they're credible or not. It's for the
Hmm.
individual to decide. I'm not going to crap on anybody here, but 30 trillion things thrown in your face. That is overwhelming when you're trying to do something that is beneficial to you. I kind of, from speaking to numerous people and reading probably 15 trillion of those 30 trillion self help things, I admit I'm addicted to reading them, not necessarily acting on them, have kind of broken it down into eight. So I want to get your opinion on these eight and then
Sure.
kind of round out the episode with a couple other things, but we'll get to that in a minute. So, number one of the eight tips for creating and sticking to a schedule. Are you an agenda fan? I tend to have six of them, and I'm trying to limit it to one in one place. I see a calendar behind you there.
I still have to update it. It still says July. But yes, I have this calendar, and actually, I have this is my go-to planner for the school year. I've used it every year of college. I swear by it. I have to get a new one actually, but so you can write down for me. Like I wrote down my classes, and then it's all like the homework I had to do. You can see soccer's in there, so I'd write down whatever we had for soccer. That really helps me a lot to stay organized. And right now in the summer, the only thing I really write down is like my workouts for the week. So I
Yes.
got those, and I take a picture of it so I have it, and I just that's how I get through it. I'm a huge fan of sticky notes, and
Ooh, me too.
let's
Me
see.
too. I think I have 4 pads on my desk right now. Oh, you beat me. You beat me.
Well,
But
I
I
got the
love it. I
little ones
like
too.
I like the for marking pages and books
Yeah.
maybe.
Oh, I'm a bit. I
I
don't
know
know
I
if I
saw
can
the
find a
books
book right
too.
now, but
But
yeah, I'm a
well, while you're
big
searching, I
fan
like
of listing.
the formality and informality of your lists. I like the hey, this is a very important part of my life that's coming up in the future. Can I create the there they are, yeah. Can I create the agenda that's going to be a roadmap for me for the semester, the week, the month, however long you need in your head. I like that in your
Hmm.
agenda. But then I also like the informality of the sticky note. I'm a big fan of when I see a quote that sticks with me or see the same thing over and over again, write it down, post it on my mirror. I try to keep 3 up there so I'm not overwhelmed, right? It's all about
Yep.
balance in your routine.
I've got two sticky
Um
notes on my mirror.
there, see? I knew we
Yep.
were on the same page for some things. I knew I liked you for some reason. But that kind of leads me to point 2, avoiding
Hmm.
distractions. When you can get that roadmap, whatever that looks like, sticky notes, agenda, somewhere in the middle. It helps you avoid distractions. It limits the amount of time you can doom scroll. Again, we'll just stick on that example there because that's what I'm even guilty of. Did it
Hmm.
twice already today, so I threw my phone across the room one time. Don't advise that either; it might break. But avoiding distractions can go a long way in creating a schedule and ultimately lead you to not even realize you're in the schedule. When you catch yourself in a distraction, besides throwing your phone across the room like me, again, don't do it. How do you get yourself out of that distraction, whether it's 20 minutes of that scrolling or maybe it's a repeated distraction you've noticed over a long period of time?
I think homework wise, if I notice myself, working for 2 minutes and being like, oh, I gotta check my phone. I put it on do not disturb, and I put it across. I don't throw it. I place it across the room, and I'll take my watch off too, so I
Hmm.
have no distractions. And I'm a big fan of listening to like instrumental music or music that doesn't have lyrics while I'm doing stuff. That because that really helps to kind of tune out everything else or like all the things going on in my brain, but I still kind of something to focus on. That
Hmm.
helps a lot for me.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think personally, I listen to piano music, just instrumentals. Sometimes the instrumental comes on and I start singing the lyrics. I'm like, how do you even know this song, dude? But yeah, I like the taking off the watch. That's a new one that I don't think many people think about. We think because our phone's across the room, we still can't get distracted. Well, you could easily hit
Yeah.
the plus button on your laptop and start Googling something, shop on Amazon. You could log into your Instagram online. So it does take some sort of self control, which also takes a lot of practice. But I'm going to move on to number 3 here, assigning priority to tasks. When it comes to schoolwork, obviously you have to do the homework to get to the test. You have to,
Mm-hmm.
well, you don't have to study, but it's strongly suggested that you do some studying before you take a test. For athletes, we want to get to the championship, but the next most urgent thing is either the next play at hand, the next practice at hand, the next game at hand. How do you assign urgency levels to these tasks so you can stay on target?
I think when we're in the hustle and bustle of season, um, my schoolwork always comes first, and then whatever's going on, if anything's going on family wise, that comes next, and then it's soccer, anything soccer wise. It's like, for example, this was one that I had, and it was kind of like it was in chronological order, but also priority order of okay, I had my class I had to do, and then okay, I had work, and then practice, and then errands I had to run. So I definitely go by chronological order, but definitely also priority. You know how
That's
important
fair.
is something.
That's fair. When you wake up in the morning, practice for a lot of Division 3 schools isn't till later in the day. So you want to make
Hmm.
sure that's on your schedule. I like that a lot because I think I do that without even realizing it, right? I know the 5 places I have to be today. And then in those 5 places, I start to rank, okay, while I'm at work today, I have 3 2-hour tasks I need to get done. The rest is bonus. When I'm at school, I need to get my homework done. I need to study. If I could hit another class, that's a bonus. If I'm playing video games, I have time for 2 games. 3 would be wonderful, make my day. And then at practice, I know I need to work on this today. My
Hmm.
for goalkeepers, my diving's been off, my first step's been off. Maybe I've been crossing my feet, something, wherever your position
Hmm.
is. The rest is bonus. And for me, that leads me to be more productive and more present wherever I'm at because I know that I've already listed out what I need to get done after this. Let's just focus on what's here. Let's use this 2 hour chunk of time to forget about whatever was before and whatever comes next. And as a coach, that's incredibly rewarding to see when a player can do that. However, we know it's not always realistic. Most coaches were there at one point. We know that shut up coach, we can't be present all the time, right? Like we've all thought that.
Hmm.
But the more you are present, the more you can say, okay, let's use this 2 hour chunk of time at practice to focus on practice. Let's use the next chunk of time to focus on my schoolwork. Let's use that hour chunk of time to focus on nothing that we talked about.
Yeah.
Once you start to assign those urgency levels, those specifics to each time, break it down into smaller tasks. I know when I was taking the SATs, I would divide the clock up. I would say, all right, we have 4 more 5-minute chunks left as opposed to 20 minutes. And that helped me take a deep breath
Hmm.
and relax because 20 felt like, oh my God, we're running out of time. But I'm like, wait a minute, I got 4 more chunks of time here.
Hmm.
And that kind of leads me to number 4, adding cushion time. I never did that. I used to go one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, and before you know, I'm on the 4th thing, and I'm a half an hour into that schedule already. What is cushion time for you, and does it play a role?
Cushion time is a huge thing that I've come to love, especially when it comes to homework. For anyone who's ever been in education, you probably have heard this, but and even outside of education, the Pomodoro, oh, I can never say it right, the Pomodoro technique where you work on a task for 25-30 minutes and then you take a 5 minute break. You keep going and you do 4 cycles. And once you do 4 cycles of 20, 25 minute, 30 minute of work, you get a 10 minute break. That is super helpful too when I have a big task to do, especially if I have like a presentation or a paper. That keeps me still motivated to do it, but I'm also not expending all of my brain energy at one point. It's like when we have sprints and we sprint down, okay, you have 15 seconds to rest. It's kind of like I'm
Mm-hmm.
giving my brain that same treatment, if that makes sense.
100%. I think it's the Pomodoro effect. I think you were correct. I know in the world of psychology, it's used to help individuals with ADHD as well in their attention span. Um,
Hmm.
Again, cushion time, I really believe, but it's not for everyone. Some people accidentally abuse cushion time and it becomes a bad habit. If that is you, it's okay. You're allowed to stumble
Hmm.
and fall. Recognition and then action, right? You can recognize it and sit in it, or you can recognize it and want to do a little bit better, just 1% better. James Clear, I'll say it till I'm blue in the face. Just if you have 10 minutes of cushion time and you see yourself at 15, go to 14, then 13, baby steps. It's not
Hmm.
20 minutes, it's 4 chunks of 5. When it comes to this, how can you create realistic deadlines for those tasks that you've now chunked out? Maybe you've added the cushion time, distractions are to the side. Sometimes deadlines are given to you, but how
Hmm.
can you either meet those deadlines or exceed them? Um, and what does that look like to you with realistic deadlines?
So for me, because I've been an athlete pretty much my whole life, I've always had to have stuff done ahead of time. So I've just had to train my brain and figure out how to give deadlines on top of deadlines. So I tell myself, okay, if this paper's due on Friday, I need to have my rough draft done by Wednesday. So I have Wednesday to Friday to edit it. And just in case I don't get a time to edit it, it's still done. And there's still something I can hand in just in case. But that might be the overachiever in me.
No, I think it's fair. I think a lot of individuals are like that, athlete or not. I think it's just something
Hmm.
that athletes don't even realize we do because we have away games to travel to that we have to. We don't have to, but we'd prefer not to sit on the bus and do homework if possible. Although we've all been there, we
True.
prefer to spend an overnight trip just hanging out with the teammates and making core memories, and not in your room studying for a test. Again, if you have to, please do. I'm not saying screw your studying, screw your test, but because Haley has been so proactive in her approach to learning and goalkeeper training and being a leader and a teacher, she's able to do this now. I mean, I've hinted at it a few times on accident in the first five or six, the last two actually three. I think I meant five, but six. Schedule the hard tasks in your off time. Do you believe about scheduling in your off time, or do you schedule the hard tasks into your time so that way you don't cut into that cushion time?
That's a good one. I know workout wise, I like to get the hard part done first.
Hmm.
So, like today, I had a circuit, a goalie circuit to do, and it's pretty tough. It's a lot of getting up and down. It's very goalkeeper specific fitness, and it's hard work. And I knew if I didn't start with it, I wouldn't want to do it. So I got it done first, and anything after that, I was like, it's a bonus because I got the hard stuff done first.
Hmm. Yeah, so you you don't necessarily use your off time for it. You schedule it at the beginning of the scheduled time. Kind of like I
Yeah,
alluded to earlier. Again, inadvertently jumped ahead, but getting the two or three tasks done and everything else is bonus. I like
yeah.
that. I like that. Has that always been the
Even
case
with
for you,
homework.
or is that something you've kind of adopted the more experience you've gotten under your belt?
I think I've always done that, and even growing up with my parents, they were always like, if you get the hard homework done first, you're gonna feel better. Like if you read that hard book first, the next one's gonna feel easy. Like
Hmm.
it's
Yeah,
always
no.
been like if you can get through that challenge, if you can get through that adversity, then everything else is gonna feel easy to you.
Yeah, and that kind of to number seven takes us right in perfectly. So thank you for that. Distinguishing. Wow, can I get through one episode without stuttering? Distinguishing work and play. This one is tricky for athletes because our sport often feels like work, but should feel like play, but not to the extent where your level drops because we all have some passion, some self respect, and some love for whatever game you are playing. How can
Hmm.
you distinguish and prioritize work versus play and when one should feel like the other?
This past semester, I actually had a research project that I was super into, and I loved it. And I really had to limit myself on what I was researching because I could just go down the rabbit hole forever in that topic. And I had to keep bringing myself back. All right, if you get the annotated bib done, now then you can go research. Like I had to get those important tasks that were due. I had to get those squared away, and then I let myself kind of wander and have fun with it. And even in soccer for goalie training, I'll have us do the hard or the challenging or the aspect that we want to focus on for that day in training, we'll do that first. And then if we want to mess around and play head it catch it after, fine. We got that stuff done first and out of the way.
Yeah, and I usually wander over when you're playing the games and join in. So I'll keep doing that. No, I
As
love
you
it.
should.
I think it's a beautiful thing to master of getting the required stuff done, getting the quote unquote work done, even if it is in what you consider play as athletes. No one wants to spend 8 days straight running, right?
Mhm.
I know a lot of coaches in preseason get that done first, and then those who get it done are usually rewarded with the scrimmage after. Or, I mean, it depends on the coaching technique. I'm not going to sit here and tell coaches how to do their job.
Mhm.
I'm just kind of blanketing over what a lot of coaches have chosen to do: fitness, scrimmage, fitness, individual work, or technical skills. Like the scrimmage usually comes later in the day unless the coach is trying to prove a point. Sometimes we do that and we let you scrimmage first and then we yell at you and tell you guys you stink. No, I'm kidding. Unless, again, but that's the coach's brain from the other
Mhm.
side thinking, okay, what do I need to focus on today? How can I get my athletes to see that in the most effective, most mentally health friendly way possible, right? We can't just sit here and yell at you and say you stink, whether you can take it or not. We have to get you to realize what you need to work on so that way you can better yourself. And I think the athlete that figures that out is going to be so far ahead in the long run, but that's a whole nother topic that I don't want to go into. Leading me right to point eight, again, inadvertently focusing on one thing at a time. Some days I'm good at this. Today, clearly, I'm not good at this. I've jumped the gun about 4 times. How do you focus on one thing at a time, and what does it do for your mental health?
That's also something I struggle with day to day. Sometimes it's a really good day and I do stay present in the moment, one thing at a time. And some days I'm all over the place and I can't get myself seated in one spot. But growing up, my dad said a lot. He would say it all the time about stuff, one day, one thing at a time, one day at a time. So sometimes when I'm having those moments where I struggle, I do just kind of hear him in the back of my head saying, one thing at a time. It's all good. So when I have those tough moments, I definitely think of him. Or the biggest help for me is just writing stuff down. If I have to list it out of like whatever's going on, or even say a conflict occurs and I'm having all these thoughts and feelings and I don't know how to express them, I'll just write it all out. Sometimes I'll use like a mind map and I'll just do a big spider web and just like get it all out of my head. So there's just a little less mumbo jumbo up there. If that makes sense.
Yeah, and whether you realize it or not, you went back to step one. You went back to keep your agenda, keep your note cards in
Yeah.
one place. So this goes to show you what kind of an interconnected web it is, and
Hmm.
how beautifully confusing. Excuse me for pulling dog hair off my tongue in the middle of the video, but one thing at a time, Caleb. It took you
One
back to
thing.
the very beginning, the interconnected web, as I was mentioning. When all eight of these tips, again, through an extensive research and a lot of conversations, this is what I've found. When all these eight tips are working together, you are on top of the world. You're acing tests. You're failing tests and you're learning from them, right? Sometimes everything's in
Hmm.
order and you're still not hitting your goals. You're having the best practice of your life. You're frustrated at practice, but at least you can understand why. You're winning the championship or you're standing on the sideline watching second place. Like, at least you have that consciousness. At least you have that clarity when all of these eight tips are working in harmony. When one's not, you need to rely on one of the other seven tips to get you there. I want to know, out of those eight tips, besides listing things and writing them down, what is number two? When even listing things is shitting the bed, what do you draw on? And maybe it's not one of those seven tips. Maybe you have something else we didn't mention yet.
I mean, one thing that's in my routine, no matter where I am, no matter what I do, is make my bed. I, yeah, I feel you, Nala. Yeah, but I always make my bed because at the end of the day, if I come home and it's been a terrible day and I have really struggled to stay present or get all my stuff done, I know I accomplished at least one thing, that I made my bed, no matter what.
And it's so simple. It's not
Yes.
like you went to Target, went to Walmart, just the two biggest brand names I could have thought of for no reason, and bought something, right? It's
Hmm.
not that you sat down for 3 hours and figured out your life. It's not even that you cooked a meal, which requires some things,
Hmm.
some things. Good English, Caleb. Some sort of skill. You just make your bed,
Yeah.
morning, afternoon, even before you jump in it. That way you can hit that 1%. I know we talked about 15 minutes of doom scrolling to 14. Well,
Hmm.
make your bed for 2 minutes. That's 2 minutes of something positive you would not have done otherwise. And it can have that snowball effect. I want to slide into the last portion here just for a matter of time and attention's sake because, and I'm going to call every single person out listening right now, you can't handle the hour episodes right now. And that's okay. No, I'm kidding. It's genuinely okay though, because sitting down for an hour takes a lot of time. So,
Hmm.
for purposes of time, and I love each person I just called out. I'm sorry, that was kind of mean here on what are we recording? A Monday afternoon, but that's probably why I called you out because it's a Monday. Anyways, I want to slide into the last portion,
Hmm.
hopefully regaining the attention of my listeners. Maybe I just played out a trick on them. I want to say that if people have problems sticking to routines, it's not because they're lazy or lack the willpower. It's because there's some sort of doubt in their mind that they're not capable of it. Is that a fair assumption? Is that a hot take? And if that statement is correct, some people have that self doubt where they feel like they can't even stick to a routine. How can we slap it in the face, that self doubt? How can we say, get out of here? I am strong. I can make my bed.
Yeah, and that's one thing I really wish people would give themselves more grace with. Like, we're all human. There's always something that happens that's going to irritate us or annoy us, or something's going to happen no matter what. And sometimes we can be the harshest critics to ourselves. And I wish we could just be more um, as patient with ourselves as we are with our friends or our siblings or our family or boss or whoever it might be. We tend to, for some reason, not be as patient or not be as nice or kind to ourselves as we are with others. And I would love if those listening could just take a second, because you got to stay with you your whole life. That's if there's one person you got your whole life, it's yourself. So if we can somehow retrain our brain to be nice to your brain, that'd be wonderful. So even if you don't make your bed, but you fix your comforter, so at least maybe the comforter's flat. Great. That's a step. Or if there's pillows on the floor, you pick the pillows up, they're on the bed. Even just a small goal. 1% better every day is better than nothing, you know?
Yes, I love that. Get the ball rolling or
Hmm.
direct the ball back towards the right direction. I like to think of the game, the Plinko game on The Price is Right. Again, maybe dating myself, but you drop that coin and it's going to reach the bottom, whether it bounces all the way to the right, all the way to the left. In
Hmm.
this case, I hope the destination isn't the bottom, although for some people it might be. Wherever you're going towards that destination, think of yourself as that Plinko chip. Horrible analogy, but you're going to remember it. It's dropping, it's bouncing off these pegs, but it's still going towards its end goal. And there's a prize at the bottom. Even if you were one square off from where you wanted to be, well, even in The Price is Right, you got to drop more than one chip. So just pick that chip back out, drop it again. Maybe it falls in the same pattern. Maybe it goes straight down. One of those times, you're bound to hit the space you want to land in. So I love that. If
Hmm.
you can't make your whole bed, even muster up that energy, get towards that goal. Just be flexible, be graceful, and be direct, I will say. Have a sense of direction of where you want to go, and the journey will take care of itself. Is
Yeah.
that
And a
fair?
big thing, oh, definitely. And I think a big thing too is like treat your future self the way that you wish other people would treat you. So if you would hope someone would make you breakfast maybe one day, make yourself breakfast. Your future self's gonna love it. I make overnight oats every night. So I have a breakfast no matter what. And I can count on my past self to do it for my future self. And I think that's huge too, is I appreciate myself so much more because I'm doing these things for myself because I love myself and I'm working towards continuing that process of loving myself.
Yes, value yourself because you're worth it. I think I say that in a
Hmm.
lot of my episodes. I think I end every conversation with "you're worth it." So thank you for stealing my thunder. But I want to jump into the final question. I usually save these for guest episodes, but you're a guest even if it's on a conversation or not. You already know the final question. So, Haley, if there is one person in the world besides yourself, because I knew you might say that you would like to give a hug to, who would it be and why? And we're going to take out anyone in your immediate family because you've already talked about your dad. So we're making it challenging.
Outside of my immediate family,
I mean, you can go into cousins. I'm talking about your brother and your parents.
um, I think I would have to give my oldest cousin a hug because he's getting married and It is. He's getting married next month, and he has grown so much, and I'm just so proud of him. And it's amazing to see, and I'm so excited to celebrate with him that day. So I think I'd have to say him. Yeah.
Yeah, we love that. Congratulations, cousin. We wish you nothing but blessings at that wedding and beyond. And you can just see Haley's eyes light up if you're listening to this. So it is obviously straight from the heart. I know
Hmm.
mom and dad, Haley's mom and dad, you guys got a hug too. She just didn't say it out loud, even
I
brother
wasn't. I
there.
wasn't allowed. I wasn't allowed.
I know we see that's but you adapted. Right there in itself was how you can do it with your routines. Now that I think about it,
Yeah.
right? The constraints were given to you and you said, "Dang it. That was the direction I wanted to go." You bounced off a couple of those pegs as we referenced and you still landed at the
Hmm.
destination, but it
Exactly.
challenged you a little bit. It challenged you to think and it made you a better person for it. So, Haley, thank you so much for being flexible, for being kind, and for being honest in your answers. You could see the steam coming out of your ears when you were thinking through some of those. But as we look at the calendar behind you, the stack of books, we know that your advice holds weight, right? And if you
Yeah.
connected with anything Haley said, I know she's always more than willing to connect. Same here with me on
Hmm.
both personal and the podcast platform. Please reach out if you have any more questions on this episode, or if you just want to talk in general. Besides the helpline 988, we are both here to direct you in the right direction or to someone who knows their stuff if we are not qualified. So, as always, we love you. Start to prioritize yourself because what, Haley? Because what?
You're worth it.
Yes, you
Always,
got it.
every day.
There we go. Well, can't wait to see you in preseason. And as Haley said, you're worth it.